This goes back. I'm a Central New Yorker, native to Chittenango, New York, Wizard of Oz, and that's about all we've got there. Now we have the Wild. But I grew up a very Italian family. Well, I happened to meet the guys that owned BHG, the original three founders, over a game of golf, and told them what we were doing. And they invited me down to present to them the following week. I have drank so much coffee today, guys. So, you're going to get everything I got. And something I'm, very that's important to me are my children. I have 3 kids, twin boys that are 5, and my daughter just turned 3. But I love failure. As I told you guys when we talked before, I like it more than success because it's that learning tool of how can I recalibrate 18 years of my career. How can I do something? And it's why I'm sitting here, but I also don't take it for granted because I feel like it could go away tomorrow. So every day when my feet hit the floor, it's as if I'm going to work side by side with my dad on the farm. It's a great opportunity, but I realized at heart I wasn't a South Floridian. I was from upstate New York. I needed to get back on the farm. My family was here. Now, that's a great story, except along the way I happened to meet a native Floridian and married her. And I bribed her to come back that she would get this beautiful snow globe adventure of upstate New York. He's the reason why I'm standing here. My mom and my dad, but that potato farming background and coming from nothing and making something out of it, what most people take for granted. I was exposed to brands like Disney, Speed TV, Florida Hospital. That's why I stay at BHG. And I don't know if I could ever work anywhere else because it's that environment. It's that passion. We believe in PMA. It's so good to be back and work for a company like this and make the connections like with you guys through the community, making the city smaller. That's what I love and missed about Syracuse. So it's an honor, and I love every minute of it.
The folks that are left, and this is general statement, are so rooted here that we're ingrained, and it's like whether you bleed orange or you're passionate about the Make-A-Wish or you're passionate about whatever your go-to nonprofit is, someone on the board, you're like, or your family's benefited from that nonprofit in one way or the other, you just give it right back. But it's all because we're from here, and we're just rooted.
But my grandmother, who was off the boat from Germany, she's about 4'11". She worked at Sweetheart Market. She's a produce manager at Sweetheart Market in North Syracuse for 35 years. She was the greatest human being ever. And she would let me come spend the night with her on Saturday night, and we'd stay up and watch Saturday night's main event. So Hulk Hogan, King Kong Bundy, Andre the Giant. There are lessons in pro wrestling. Number 1, everybody loves a comeback story.
I've changed my environment for today. I'm strapped in, safety first. In my car, I could not find an open conference room in our building.
Your stuff. Little did they know I was a potato farmer from upstate New York. And so I started to study. I read a lot. It's something that my mother used to do with me when I was young. I've never had a time in my life where I wasn't reading something. But, we're going to launch a podcast called Perfectly Imperfect. And their marketing changed. They said, your office is now this thing. This is your new office. And everything tells a story. So it's not just a cliche here and there. It's a piece of it. But I want to get different people in Syracuse who are okay with sharing, this in business and life. Didn't work out for me. And here's what I learned, and here's how I adjusted.
Hey, listen! Don't listen to Mike. That's a background he has for Zoom, so he can make it look like he's practical.
Yeah, right. I love it.
We did have to give ourselves a little bit of an outline. So, on a piece of paper next to me, I've written down professional wrestling. I've written down arm tattoo. I've written down current BHG events with a subset of billboard and national reach. And then my last one is what's next. And so I'm hoping by the end of our call, if we could try to hit every one of those topics at some point, Sure. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Pro wrestling, I'll keep quick, but it's entertaining. For me, a lot of it's my backstory, my old man and the potato farm, and why I'm here. This goes back. I'm a Central New Yorker, native to Chittenango, New York. Wizard of Oz, and that's about all we've got there. Now we have the Wild. But I grew up a very Italian family, but Italian potato farmers. So I grew up with dirt under my fingernails. I still have it. My dad took over for his father when he got sick, and I grew up in what we call muck, or black gold. And that's where I learned everything from my dad. And, he's just the guy that has driven, he's the reason why I'm standing here, my mom and my dad. But that potato farming background and coming from nothing and making something out of it, what most people take for granted, put my sister, my brother, and myself through college and really offered us a good life. But it taught me, number one, I didn't want to work on a potato farm. So anytime I would get out of line, I knew that that's what was waiting for me. So it really was a big motivator. But it really instilled from the time I was 5 or 6 years old. I was sweeping floors, making cardboard boxes, dropping bags of salt in potatoes for the fair. And it just taught me that this is what you have to do. And it doesn't matter. I would always look up and I would see my dad doing every job. He had people that didn't have educations, that dropped out of high school, never made it to middle school from Central New York working with him. And he was working side by side. So it taught me hard work. It taught me to respect every single person at every level of our company. And those are two very valuable lessons that I've carried with me. And it shaped me because I still, as CMO of BHG, we're a very successful company. I still don't feel like this could go away. So no one's ever going to outwork me. And from the respect and appreciation and gratitude angle, it's something that's extremely important to me. And I learned it at a very young age, and I've tried to carry it with me throughout my entire career. And I actually bartended all through college, and even after I got out of college, had that shiny degree. And I did unpaid internships at an ad agency down in Charlotte. But I worked, when I finished there, I took a couple hours off and then I worked all night. And again, it's you do what you have to do to survive and learn. And everything's a learning opportunity. So I've applied all of that into the last 18 years of my career. And it's why I'm sitting here, but I also don't take it for granted because I feel like it could go away tomorrow. So every day when my feet hit the floor, it's as if I'm going to work side by side with my dad on the farm. As soon as, like a lot of kids in upstate New York, as soon as you turn 18, you flee. Back in the mid 90s, early 90s. And I was in North Carolina. I went to college at UNC Greensboro and then did the typical migration after college to Charlotte. Worked at a few different places there. One of them, it taught me a lot, was a gentleman's club from 8 at night to 4 in the morning as a foreman. And it really taught me, again, I was doing that while working at Price McNabb, which is now owned by Mower. It's a mid-size agency. But I was doing that just to get by. My roommate was a golf pro, and he knew the owner. He gave him golf lessons and got me a job. It was great money while, you're 23 years old and broke. Things everywhere I've gone, I've learned. At that point, I left and went to Orlando. Again, bartending, doing an internship at 24 years old. And I landed in the motorsports industry as a marketing director. Again, another great learning lesson of what I didn't want to do in life to just make me work that much harder. But it was around that time that I met some people in radio, and they introduced me to some people in the mortgage industry that I looked and I said, man, I love advertising. I love numbers, and I love analytics, and I love behavior. I like the psychology of marketing. So I started to study. I read a lot. It's something that my mother used to do with me when I was young. I've never had a time in my life where I wasn't reading something. And I did. I met some great people along the way, and they connected me, made some introductions. And I went to a mid-size agency in Orlando where I was exposed to brands like Disney, Speed TV, Florida Hospital. Yet they always started giving me these financial RFPs, right? All right, you came from mortgages, you know your stuff. Little did they know I was a potato farmer from upstate New York. And it stuck with me. And I ended up taking over Florida Hospital, ADT, Silver Hill Financial, Peachtree Financial, and it just started to grow. Well, I happened to meet the guys that owned BHG, the original 3 founders, over a game of golf, and told them what we were doing. And they invited me down to present to them the following week. And, it was great. We landed a $250,000 contract. I didn't know what to do with that at the time, but we started working through it. But what I found was for 2 years, I was on a phone call with the 3 owners all night long. Hey, what would you do if you had extra money? And, besides give it to me, I would say, here's what we should do with your direct mail, with your digital. Let's build a new website. Let's get some email. And after 2 years, they said, look, this doesn't make sense anymore. Come work for us. This is where you belong. And it's been 11 and a half years. And, I've moved. I was in Fort Lauderdale, down in South Florida. It was a great opportunity, but I realized at heart I wasn't a South Floridian. I was from upstate New York. I needed to get back on the farm. My family was here. Now, that's a great story, except along the way, I happened to meet a native Floridian and married her. And I bribed her to come back that she would get this beautiful snow globe adventure of upstate New York. The pro wrestling, people make fun of me. Everybody at work knows that if I could do it over again, I would have lifted many, many more weights and, had a much better persona. But my grandmother, who was off the boat from Germany, she's about 4'11". She worked at Sweetheart Market. She's a produce manager at Sweetheart Market in North Syracuse for 35 years. She was the greatest human being ever. And she would let me come spend the night with her on Saturday night, and we'd stay up and watch Saturday night's main event. So Hulk Hogan, King Kong Bundy, Andre the Giant. There are lessons in pro wrestling. Everybody loves a comeback story. There's always a good guy and there's always a bad guy. There's always cheap heat. So, and I think advertising is a lot like that. And what we do is you're trying to get attention. Any attention is good attention, but you're also trying to build a brand, and you have to have different personas that can go with that. And you have to really play to your crowd and your audience. So it was something at a very young age. And I tell my team now, they know that I've got different wrestling personalities that we bring out when we're doing different kinds of campaigns. And but I really think there's a story to be told. And, it's something that takes me back to my childhood.
So the last time we talked, I think we noticed or saw a tattoo that you had on your arm. And I thought that was one of the coolest things I'd ever heard, the story behind that, if you're comfortable sharing it.
Yeah. So I grew up in a very strict family, Catholic family that, my family is still probably horrified when I wear anything other than a long sleeve shirt and long pants. But I love art, and I love the whole process of tattoos. It's something I was introduced to a long time ago. And, I've gone a different way. All of my tattoos, I have probably 80 or 100 hours worth of ink on me, and everything tells a story. So it's not just a cliche here and there. It's a piece of my life, and something I'm, very that's important to me are my children. I have 3 kids, twin boys that are 5, and my daughter just turned 3. But my wife and I, it took a very long time to have children. And one of our sons has had 7 surgeries. He had a lot of stuff go on from the time he was born. He's doing great today, but one of them, it was about a year ago. He has craniosynostosis. So the sutures fused too soon in his head, in his skull. And, he's had 5 corrective surgeries. And the last one was done down at Johns Hopkins down in St. Petersburg, Florida. The doctors there are absolutely amazing. And they gave us an image of his skull, the CT scan. So my wife and I were sitting there talking, and, we have plenty of tattoos on us. She's like, this would be really cool. So she took it and she drew it. It's his CT scan of his skull. And it's just something that constantly reminds me of how important my family is, how much my son has been through, and also how good we have. So I keep it on my forearm as a reminder every day that, we all have bad days. We all have things going on, but someone always has it worse. But, we're going to launch a podcast called Perfectly Imperfect. And it's something that means a lot to me because I haven't always done things the right way. And I've had to mature, as you said, you mature over time with things that happen as a leader, as a manager. And, for a long time, I used to beat myself up over it. And I think a lot of people do. I encounter people all the time. They're like, oh man, I didn't do this right. Or, so I started thinking, I'm like, I'm just going to get a little vulnerable here and start to share. I never used to share things with people. And because I was afraid that they would judge me, I was afraid that they would think that I don't belong or I shouldn't be doing this or I wasn't I wasn't smart. And then once I realized that it was okay to be vulnerable and share like, hey, I screwed this up, don't do this. Or, hey, let me share my experience with you that maybe you can learn. And I found that as my team and as our company has grown from 50 to 650. That kind of leadership is what needs to be done. That's how teams unify. That's how people aren't afraid to innovate and fail. I love failure. As I told you guys when we talked before, I like it more than success because it's that learning tool of how can I recalibrate, how can I do something better, and to admit, hey, you're not the smartest person in the room, and to be okay with it. So the podcast is based around that. Perfectly imperfect. I am very imperfect and I love it. And I want other people to come on and talk about their experience, authenticity, and really share that. So, maybe someone, if someone can take that and do something with it, that's great. And if not, if it's just me recording it to feel good about myself, cool too. But I want to get different people in Syracuse who are okay with sharing, this in business and life didn't work out for me, and here's what I learned and here's how I adjusted. Then that's what gets me going is being okay with screwing up. The billboard's been great for us with our partnerships. There's two that I'm really, really passionate about. Well, three. We love Make-A-Wish. They're such a great organization. But two of the ones that I'm personally involved with are David's Refuge, Kate Hauk and that group. They're amazing. And the other is Sarah's Guest House. And we've given the boards to them. We've given our suite at the War Memorial, Vance and Howard with the Crunch. They're really good friends of mine. And, we were using our ability to further their cause with David's Refuge and Sarah's Guest House. And, that's really where I start to beam. I love pro wrestling. I love all these things. I love BHG. But what we've been able to do in the community because of BHG, Al and Eric are two of the most kind-hearted people in the world, and they allow me, it's under my role and responsibilities, are to work with the local communities. It's different. Syracuse is different. People here, the business community, I've worked in Greensboro, Charlotte, Orlando, and Fort Lauderdale, and you don't feel that. It's, we cut a check to the American Heart Association. Here, it's people are involved. Everybody, VIP structures, all of you guys. This is Syracuse. And I think we all have that sense of pride. And, it's different, whether it's business, it's charity, it's the community, it's Syracuse basketball and football. It's different. And I can't really explain that to people when I go elsewhere or if I've lived elsewhere. They just think it's the frozen tundra and we're part of Canada.
So Mike, does that
you try to get
does that answer your question on the billboards piece?
I think so. Yeah, it seems like as a person from the area, I see you guys there. That's the platform where I see BHG, or if I think of BHG, I think of the billboard. So I was just curious how in these big urban centers, folks are getting out of those environments, and I'm hoping Syracuse can benefit as a place that we've got growth. We've got technology companies are growing. A lot of software-based companies are growing, and people will say, you know what? I'm going to go to upstate New York. Easy to get around. The cost of living is inexpensive. We just need the jobs. And I felt like with the jobs were coming, and I think we can get those reinvigorated if we can get through the next six months.
So, Mike, I think what you just said is beautiful. I think we need, as business people, we need to talk about broadening that circle to what you said, which is upstate New York. Broadening it past Syracuse. Look at Utica, look at Marcy, look at Rome, what's happening with the Griffiths Air Force and the unmanned. There's a lot of stuff happening. And speaking of billboards, I don't know about you guys, I drive around quite a bit. I see more billboards for people hiring than anything else right now. So for me,
everywhere.
That's optimism.
RC.
That's optimism. That means something's happening. So let's embrace that. And I think as business people, we need to spread the word. The same thing you said, Chris, about, a lot of people don't know what the culture is here from a charity perspective in Syracuse. Let's tell them. Let's tell people. Exactly. Let's let people hear, not just people that live here. Because I think, yes, people in Florida and Missouri and Illinois, they don't know that. But the worst part is a lot of people that live right here don't know that. So we got to really, I think that it's our responsibility, especially with some of the things that we're doing, to be the mouthpiece to tell people who are working for companies just how amazing it is, and show them the difference somehow, some way, of that it's not like this everywhere. We actually have something special. Before you bitch about Syracuse and the weather, take a look around and actually think about the community that's here and how can we embrace that and then maximize it. I think that's our responsibility.
There's a lot to uncover. I did Leadership Greater Syracuse 6 years ago. And the things that I learned made me fall in love with this area even more, because it's not your typical thing. You know, we have a lot of immigrants here, and there's culture, there's music, there's history. The history of this city is amazing. David Haas, who runs Sarah's Guest House, he does a social media account, I think, for the Onondaga County Historical Society. And if you're not following that, you should. It's great. But there's so much value here, and I agree with you. You know, Pete, it's something that it's our responsibility if we want it to be better. Like I said, I've got 3 small children that I hope they will stay here, but we've got to give them a reason. One of the really cool things for us is the pandemic has changed our business, that we're hiring nationwide now and doing remote. Our business has thrived by being remote, which we never thought. So I'm hiring people in Greensboro, in Virginia, in Pennsylvania. But guess what? When this is over, they're going to come here and they're going to see this firsthand, and they may want to move here. You know, it's a lot cheaper than Philadelphia, and it's just as beautiful. The weather's just as bad sometimes. So hey, as long as we're talking about brainstorming and marketing ideas, the title of your show, right? Perfectly Perfect. Is that correct? Perfectly Imperfect. Perfectly Imperfect. What better city and business market to talk about? Yeah, it is. But I think we all have that chip on our shoulder. You know, Syracuse isn't perfect. Drive around. I mean, I walk to my car, and, you know, if I don't break my ankle in a pothole or, you know, something like that, you know, or one of the parking decks doesn't fall on me one of these days, there's beauty. As soon as you pull out and you see, when you can drive down Route 81, we have so much here besides culture. It's beautiful. I mean, this is the best summer I can recall in my entire life. Yeah, and, you know, I couldn't agree more. I think we are an imperfect city. We're an imperfect society, but we're accepting of that. And you know, people are friendly here, and they want to be your partner in this, and they want to be your friend. It's different. Yeah.
Tell you what, though, I really like where you just went, though, that Syracuse, imperfectly perfect. It says a lot about Central New York, or Central New York's imperfectly perfect. Because it is perfect now, I know in so many ways.
Greg Lowe works for, you know, Ben. So, and I know Greg, he's someone I admire so much from what he's done in his career. If I start seeing this in Syracuse, you heard it here first.
Oh,
that's the commission.
That's the T-shirt, by the way. Syracuse, perfectly imperfect.
Why don't the 3 of us start a business? We'll just start hawking T-shirts. You know, I'm downtown. I can start hawking them down here.
Absolutely. What's on the horizon?
So I am going to really, by January 1st, that is my deadline for me personally to get Perfectly Imperfect launched. So my twin sons are starting virtual kindergarten. But at BHG, for us, it's opportunity. You know, I'm going to keep building the team. We've got the green light to bring on more talent across the whole company. So if there are great people in Central New York or anywhere that you guys know or that hear this, you know, please let me know. We are very excited. We have patient lending launching, a brand new platform that will rival Care Credit and provide a much better solution if your pet needs a surgery, if you need dental work, or if you're having surgery and you can't cover that out-of-pocket cost. We also have a great collections company, Capital Collection Management, where we're really disrupting an entire industry. People who think of collections, it's the steel desk, the pocket protector, and the big red stamp that says pay me, and the annoying phone calls. We're a vibrant sales organization in collections. We're doing a lot of workshops. You know, that's the misconception about collections, is that people who owe money are bad people. No, they had a hiccup. You want to turn those back into good paying customers, and you need a partner that can do it through technology. You know, so I love that company. Plus they give a lot better swag than BHG does. So Jake Corleone, my buddy, every other day I've got a new Yeti on my desk or a hat. And then really it's continuing to grow BHG. You know, we have a credit card division. Our loan products, we're going outside of medical now. We work with licensed professionals, CPAs, engineers, attorneys. We're going outside of that, even into you know, unlicensed professionals that need a working capital loan, start their own business. And then personal lending, we work through our 49% owner, Pinnacle Bank, out of Nashville, Tennessee. And then the other big one is, you guys know, we're probably ramping up for round 3 of the PPP. So Fundex Solutions Group, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of BHG, they're one of 14 non-bank licensed SBA lenders. During the first 2 rounds of PPP, we did 150 million to businesses all across the country, over 1,300 loans. So this time we've totally automated it. Don't go to your big bank. Come talk to us. We're here in Syracuse. I want every business that needs help in Syracuse. We're here, and I guarantee you it will be the best experience you can have in PPP. So that's another cheap plug. That goes back to my pro wrestling days. I would end it with a Hulk Hogan type flex of muscles and rip the shirt, but that would be embarrassing to me, and your show would probably get canceled. So we won't do that. But we are here for everyone in Syracuse that has a business that needs that help, and we're going to be nationwide with that. So if we can get all that done and I keep some of my hair, it's a win. Amazing. Eric Moore, I got to tell you a quick story, and I'll end with that. Eric is someone I admire, that I had heard about early in my career. And I met him at an awards ceremony, and I told him, I started my career with an agency. You bought the agency literally 3 weeks after I left. It was probably because I left, it was trouble. And, I said, I've just admired your story, and sent him a message. If I ever get the opportunity, I'd love to buy you coffee. Well, he turned that around on me, and he bought me breakfast. And I sat there like a little kid, and I'm just sitting there like, please tell me more. Tell me more about advertising, about his life, about everything. And how many people do you know that have the credibility that he does, that would take time for, some goofball with tattoos that thinks he knows marketing sometimes. And it just showed me a lot. And it's someone that I want to model myself after as I grow older and, get more involved with the schools and universities to do the same thing. And again, that's where the perfectly imperfect comes back to. But, he's just an amazing, amazing human being. It's like I always said, if I could be a tenth of the person my father is, or, just a fraction of that, like someone like Eric Moore, that's a win for me. I'm a work in progress, 42, and I'm still figuring out what I want to be when I grow up and how to be a dad and a husband. And, it's perfectly imperfect. Keep going back to it.
That's a great name. I'm so